Solicitation. It is, think of it as pre-conspiracy. And conspiracy is kind of pre-attempt. It's another inchoate crime. Why? Because it criminalizes the instigation of an agreement to commit a criminal offense. Basically, you're getting someone else to do your dirty work, okay? Solicitation punishes anyone who deliberately encourages someone else to commit a crime. Though in most cases, the solicitor will be the one who first thinks of committing a crime, but they don't have to be. It could just be one person who eggs on another to commit a crime that they already decided to commit. They can be guilty of a solicitation. So if somebody agrees and has already decided to commit a crime, and there's somebody, yeah, do it, that person can be charged with solicitation. Okay? Why? Why this crime? Because it's possible that the crime won't be committed. Is it different from attempt and conspiracy? It's really far stretching. We have an attempt that basically takes you right up to the point of the crime. You have conspiracy when two people agree, and now you have this, well, I'm going to egg someone on, or I am going to solicit somebody to commit a crime, and I can be charged. This is its own criminal offense. Solicitation. You can be charged with solicitation. So a person may, here's an example, a person may pay an undercover cop. Solicitation, right? Maybe being a predator on the internet. Why do we have solicitation? Why do you think we have solicitation? Law enforcement wants to put an end to crime before the crime gets off the ground. Okay? So that's really the gist of this. And this is like, it sounds like it's far stretching, but you still need those two elements of a crime. You need a criminal act and you need criminal intent. So criminal act. Words or conduct that entices or encourages a person to commit a crime. Okay? You need words. Let's go through the model penal code exactly. I like to put it in more condensed version on the slide, but the model penal code. A person is guilty of solicitation to commit a crime with the purpose of promoting or facilitating its commission. He commands, encourages, or requests another person to engage in a specific conduct which would constitute a crime. And do we need actual words? Do we need a direct communication? No, as long as the conduct is designed to affect such communication. Also, like I said, it doesn't need to be the principal. You don't need to be the principal. There's actually a case, I go and seek you out to hire you, but how about this? This is, there was a book that was published, I want to say in the late 80s, might have been early 90s, but I think it's more like the late 80s. And they made a movie about it in the early 90s called the Hitman book. And the book was all about how to kill somebody. And it was so graphic and so detailed, someone actually used it. And the thought or the attempt to make the publisher liable for solicitation, the author being liable for solicitation. It's actually a very interesting case, but what I'm getting at is this is far reaching. This can, reach out, and you don't have to be the person that goes to seek out someone. Like that came from a book. What about criminal intent? You also need the criminal intent component. You still need specific intent. You need the intentionally, purposely to promote the commission of offense. Must be serious about encouraging the other to commit a crime. Thinking about it out loud, I think I want to hire so-and-so to, steal this other person's car. thinking about it, joking about it is not going to be enough. It has to be intentionally and purposefully. It's based solely on the actor's intent and conduct. It doesn't the person's response is irrelevant. Person's response is irrelevant. What if the person responds? What happens? What do we have if the person responds? We have conspiracy, right? Because they say, sure, I'll do it. Now you have an agreement to commit a crime. So if I go to my neighbor who I know is a hitman, has done it in the past, and I go to my neighbor and I offer to pay $10,000 to have them murder my mortal enemy, and all I do is I go and I ask, and I even have the cash in hand. And the person doesn't have to say anything to me. I solicited. At that point, it's solicitation. And what if my neighbor's working as an undercover cop at that point? I could be arrested for solicitation. Now, if it's not, and it's my neighbor, and they say, sure, no problem, we have an agreement, and now it's conspiracy. Okay? You cannot be convicted of both solicitation and conspiracy. It's one or the other. Okay? What level of responsibility does a solicitor have? What will a solicitor be responsible for? Any solicited crime that is committed or attempted by the person he solicited. So let's say I ask my neighbor to kill my mortal enemy. They don't say anything to me. They don't say, sure, Rebecca, no problem, and I give them money. I say that, kind of shrugs at me, and I don't really think about it. And then the next day, my mortal enemy is dead at the hands of the neighbor. And my neighbor gets caught. My neighbor says, in an attempt to help himself, Rebecca wanted me to do it. Rebecca asked me to do it. She solicited me to do it. She encouraged me to do it. She said she's going to pay me to do it. So now what do we have? I'm arrested for solicitation. He's arrested for murder. And now I become, as the solicitor, the accomplice. And we're both responsible for the crime of murder. Let's talk about Amy. So Amy desperately wanted the job of her boss, Rebecca. Her only hope was getting Rebecca fired. Amy asked Sam, a homeless man that sat outside the building, to injure Rebecca as she entered the building so that Rebecca could no longer work and her position would be filled, hopefully by Amy. Sam listened to Amy, then got on the bus and left town. Can Amy be charged? She was charged with solicitation. She sure can. She had the intent, and she went and asked the homeless man outside the building to do a crime, which is to assault Rebecca. So in this case, yes. What's her level of responsibility if he went all the way through with it? She would be the one charged with assault as well. Punishment, well, it's going to depend on what the crime is, right? You're going to be punished the same way as if you were charged with the crime, in this case, the assault, if the homeless man went through with it. With regards to the example with the neighbor, and the neighbor killed my mortal enemy, and I'm charged now as the accomplice because I solicited. I might also be charged with solicitation as well. I can be charged with both. And they might try and work a conspiracy, but they have to find out we had an agreement. And maybe at that point there was, maybe by his implied act of doing the deed, but you can't be convicted of both solicitation and conspiracy, as I said. But there will probably be a solicitation to commit murder and a murder charge for me. Hopefully that's all nice and clear. I think solicitation is pretty straightforward. Defenses. Oh, let me ask you this question. Do undercover law enforcement officers commit solicitation? We talked about entrapment. We talked about providing opportunity versus entrapment. Isn't sort of kind of solicitation, right? They proposition prostitutes, or maybe they buy drugs as an undercover officer, or they seek to buy drugs as an undercover officer. Is it okay for them? It is a form of solicitation. This is a big controversy, right? Police should detect crime, not manufacture crime. But it is okay, because why? Their interests are to detect criminal activity, and that seems to be okay. Renunciation, that's a defense, but very much like conspiracy, it has to be done voluntarily, completely, and must prevent the crime. The crime can't happen, must prevent the crime. And the punishment that somebody will get for solicitation is, again, it's broken down relative to the specific charge or offense that they were soliciting, and it's graded based off of the offense. And last but not least, New York has a solicitation law. The statute reads, a person is guilty of criminal solicitation when, with intent that another person engage in conduct constituting a crime, he or she solicits, requests, commands, impromptus, or otherwise attempts to cause such other person to engage in such conduct. So New York does have a solicitation statute. All states do, I believe, as well as the feds. So that is the end of our inchoate, that's a tough word, inchoate crimes. Or when you say it too fast, or you've done like 3 videos in a very short period of time. Nonetheless, if you have any questions on anything, you email me, reach out to me, we can conference on them. But what I don't want is, I just want to do a small video presentation of, kind of add a little bit more than what the book has, but I don't want to repeat the book to you either. But I like giving you an idea with more actual specific statutes, especially relative to New York, because that's where we are in New York. And the next week, we're going to start jumping into offenses themselves. We're going to start talking about specific offenses. And our first one up will be homicide.